All right, welcome everybody around the world. Welcome to all my subscribers. I just wanted to share some detail from what I believe is most likely a prophetic dream from Almighty God that He started giving me when I was a young child. I've had it for about 30 years now. And out of the many things that take place in this end of days dream, one of the striking things that stands out, is the arrival of this great dragon like Leviathan. Okay, so last night in my research and studies, I was listening to this rabbi talking. He was talking about Leviathan, and he's talking about something I heard before, but he was talking about how Leviathan will emerge in the end of days and this and that there. So it's a very interesting topic, and it just rekindled it for me because I've experienced this in my dreams. So I just wanted to share some detail from my dreams about Leviathan, and it'd be interesting to see if the rabbis have an opinion of this, if any of them happen to stumble upon my video. Um, but also, I have my little handy chalkboard here, and I drew out the little city from one of my dreams where I saw the creature, and one of the times I saw the creature, and I'll show the approximate size in relation to like the city, right? So um, chalkboards are useful. So, anyways, I'll get to that. I can't for the life of me draw the creature, right? I'm not that good an artist. So Leviathan is essentially a large dragon. I would not say a fish, not a fish at all. Now, I'm not going to say and claim that the creature I saw in my dream was announced to me, hey, this is Leviathan, okay? But out of all the other things that were, amok on the earth at the time, even other large creatures, this was the only one that would even be fittingly called Leviathan, right? So I didn't see anything else, is my point, that could be regarded as Leviathan. And of all the things I saw, this massive creature was one that most closely fit the description of Leviathan. So it's essentially a large dragon. Now, what type of dragon did it look like? Because there's all sorts of different forms of dragons. Now, I don't recall seeing any wings on this creature, but you have to keep in mind this creature was so large, okay, that of all the times I saw it in my dream over these 30 years, and I never counted the number of times that I saw Leviathan or the creature that I feel was Leviathan. And I didn't always encounter Leviathan every single time I had the dream, but in all the times that I have encountered, that I encountered Leviathan, it is simply so large, the creature, that even if you're in the exact city where it is trampling and walking around, it's just so big you can never really see the whole of the creature. At least I couldn't. If it walks past the street, like if you're in a building and it walks past the street, for example, all you'll be able to see is its foot and its ankle, because that alone will be like 80 or 100 feet up into the air. And you'll try to lean your neck back to look up at the height of the creature, and it's too tall. You cannot see it. I only think it's only about 500 to 1,000 feet tall. I'm not saying this thing is like miles tall or something crazy, but it's just so big. If you're in a congested city, you won't be able to see it well. You'd have to be at a distance from the creature in order to see it. So there's only one time in my dream, which is why I got the little chalkboard here, where I got an approximate size of the creature because I was at a distance, like a city block or two away, and it was down at the end of like this open, I don't know what the word for it is, like boulevard or something in the middle of the city. And that's where I got a scope of the size. And it was about as tall or taller than the skyscrapers. So I don't know what skyscrapers they were. And this didn't look like Saudi Arabia to me, where they have like the Burj Khalifa and all of that. And it didn't look like that. So I just think it's like an average, those were average skyscrapers. I don't know what city it was, but it was about the size of them. So I won't bore everybody with the exhaustive details and the encounters in the dream. I'll give a little description of it, but just so I can get the size out of the way. So in this dream here, the only time that I saw the full creature and at all, where I could even give any type of description to it. I mean, I could obviously tell it was some type of dragon because you could at least see its foot or its tail and it's breathing fire and such, right? But like I said, only this one time I could see the full creature. So if this chalkboard was like the window of the building that I was in, so imagine that you're me and you're looking out the window of a building. The dark chalkboard actually kind of accurately represents the nighttime, because that's what it was. Okay, so you get the angle right, so the light's not shining on it. So just give you an idea. So like the chalkboard frame is the window of the building that I was in, way up in the air, like I don't know what floor, but way up high in the skyscraper. And I was looking down like the city street that had like trees or whatever in the middle. Either side are the big skyscrapers. Down the end in the far distance are skyscrapers, and the streets are running sideways like that, right? So that was my view looking at it. And the moon was like up here or something. There was very pale moonlight. So, anyways, the creature Leviathan walked out like from behind the corner here and walked out in front of these buildings. So now, again, I am not Bob Ross or any amazing artist, but I will try to represent how tall the creature was here. I'll draw him from the side because I'll just draw a basic shape. I'm not trying to be artistic here. Okay, trust me on that. It's gonna look like a chicken. Okay, but just bear with me. You can't be artistic. See, it looks like a chicken, right? But anyways, that was about the size of the creature. Okay, so it was, when I saw it, it was bipedal. I'm not claiming that it's always bipedal. Maybe it reared up. I don't know. But ignoring the fact that this looks like a chicken, that was the approximate size of it. Okay, so maybe the height of the back here is a little misleading in that case. So maybe if I do like that, and so this would be the approximate size of the creature. That's a little bit better. I would say that's a fair, quick sketch representation of the size. And it's standing right in front of these skyscrapers. So it's about as tall or just taller than them. So, and the other reason I saw it is because it walked out this direction, stopped here for a bit, and the moonlight was just bright enough to see the creature. But anyways, at this distance, whatever it was, like hundreds of feet away, maybe 1,000 feet away or so, I could see that it had little beady yellow bright eyes, and they were like glowing. I remember at the time thinking that, oh, this is Leviathan. He's come from the ocean, and these are, like creatures in the deep ocean have bioluminescence. So I just figured that Leviathan had his own form of bioluminescence. At the time in my dream, I wasn't thinking of Job, because I think Job mentions that, he lights up the deep as he swims through it, which a lot of deep sea creatures do. So, but his eyes were very bright. So you could see these bright little, and they look small for like the size of the creature. Or maybe it was just the irises or the pupils that were yellow, but at the distance, all I could see were these two little beady, like yellow eyes on it. Not super tiny, but they were smaller than you think they would be type size. And the creature in no way resembled Godzilla. So I wasn't like being influenced by dreams or anything like that there. It didn't look like, didn't move like, or anything. It looked like a large dragon. That's all I could put it. It didn't look like a Chinese or Japanese style Asian dragon, which are long and serpent-like. Didn't look anything like that. It had a very sturdy body, torso, and all. From what I could see, it just had 4 limbs. I can't say for sure if it had less or more, but I'm pretty sure it had 2 or 4 arms and 2 legs, and I know it has a very long tail. Whether it has wings or not, I cannot say. It wasn't bright enough to see the creature. I could just see the whole shape of the creature and the size of the creature rearing above, and I could see that it was a dragon. And then it turned its face up that avenue, like looking. So when it got in front of those skyscrapers, it then looked in this direction, like up towards my window. And that's when I could really see its 2 eyes. And I saw its face. But there's no way that I could ever, for the life of me, describe it, let alone draw it. I just don't know how to describe it. It just like a dragon. And it had all these like adornments on its heads, like fins or crests or spikes or horns. But again, it was just, I couldn't see it. It wasn't close, and it was huge, but I couldn't see it well enough with enough light to really discern what it looked like. It did have like a kind of like a snout. It wasn't like a long snout like a crocodile or an alligator. It wasn't short and snubby. It was like kind of like in between. So it had, like what you would typically assume like a dragon would look like. That's the type of snout that it had. Very, very powerful looking. It did not look skinny or frail or anything like that there. And but yeah, that's unfortunately the only detail that I can give of the creature. But again, it's just so huge, and that was the only time I got a glimpse. Um, I can vouch for the strength and the power of the creature. Now, this creature is so big and it's so heavy that in all the times I had the dream and this Leviathan type creature is walking around, it literally nothing stops it. It just walks through anything. It literally just walked through skyscrapers. Like when it's in the city, it's not like you can see the whole creature, like I said, because it's too big. But all you hear and see is just walking around, and everything's just collapsing and falling and smashing and being destroyed. And I'm just 100% convinced that this thing just walks right through buildings, that a skyscraper's in front of it. Remember, a skyscraper is built by humans, and they're like little tiny matchsticks and pillars like stuck together to the perspective of a big creature. The big creature is one unit. That big creature weighs the same as a skyscraper or more, and he walks into it. The big creature is not going to break into a lot of little pieces. The skyscraper will. So I think that's what the Leviathan does. He might not be able to fit between, all the buildings, where the streets are. He'll just walk where he needs to or wants to conserve energy and just smash everything apart. So, but that fits with Job, where it says that he regardeth, what is it, iron as straw and all of that there. So I could vouch for that because I could see that. And the other thing that I witnessed in my dreams was just the sheer weight of the creature, because we would hide in little buildings. And I very quickly learned you can't do that, because when he lifts his foot up, his foot is about the size of a small building, like a restaurant. It's about that big. It's huge. So when the foot comes down, it'll just flatten the building that you're in. But the creature's so heavy that with each step that it takes, as I learned, and I only learned this by being in the buildings when they get stepped on, is that his foot descends into the earth because he's so heavy, like how we leave footprints. But his footprints are like 10, 20, 30 feet deep or more, right? Like they go multiple levels down into the ground. So we learned that hiding in buildings at ground level is not safe, and that even if he's not attacking you, like he might just walk past the building and step on it and you're gone, right? So we would have to hide out in basements and lower levels. And I'll never forget that there was this one time that in the dream, I remembered going through this before, and I was like, no, we can't hide out here. We have to go even deeper down. So we looked for like an office building that had like a multi-level parking lot underground, and it went at least 4 floors deep, possibly 8. I lost track counting on the way down, but we were all the way down there, and it was concrete and everything. And I hid in this like utility room with like concrete walls and ceilings and everything around me. And when he stepped on the building, because he was heading this way, right? When he stepped on the building or tried to destroy it, whatever it was he did, his foot came crushing down. I remember being in this room thinking, oh, I'm so far down, I'm safe. But when he stepped or smashed or whatever it was that he did, the whole of the building's just coming down, compacting like boom, 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 like very quickly too, right? Just like crushing. You hear all the levels just coming down above. And I'm like, good Lord, I'm going to get squashed like a soda can crusher. Right. But there's nowhere to go. Like there's no point moving. So I just sat there and hoped and prayed that everything would be okay. And at the end, it like cracked and lowered the wall, the ceiling above me. And it might have come down a bit. Right. But I barely made it out of there. And I was like 4, 5, 6, or 7 or 8 levels below ground. And that's just from him. He may have smashed it or done something extra. I don't know. But from all I know, it's just so heavy that when he steps, you have to remember buildings aren't on solid ground, especially if they have these parking lots underneath. So they're kind of like big wafers if you're a giant creature, right? And if you step on it, it's just going to compact and crush into all these levels. So when he's walking on solid ground, it's a little bit more solid. Depends what's underneath it, right? If it's been hollowed out or this and that there, then those areas would collapse, like I'm saying. That's 100% realistic. But the sheer size and weight of this creature is unfathomable, like in person. And the tail is so huge. Like I tried to work out once before, based on all my experiences, roughly how big this creature would be. And like I said, between 500 to 1,000 feet tall, based on that one experience of the skyscrapers. But based on all the countless times I could see its feet or its lower legs or its tail passing by and all of that, I would say the feet are easily like 100 feet long, like the feet. The claws on the toes are like the size of large trucks, like you get in cities. So imagine having like 5 trucks lined up. Those are the toes on the foot, and the foot's like 100 feet long, maybe like roughly the size of an airplane. Like that's about how big each of the feet are. The tail is probably about 1,000 feet long, I would gander. It's probably about as long as the creature is tall, or a bit longer to counterbalance. So I mean that's massively huge, and the girth of the tail is about as wide. Depends on the city you're in, but the tail is so thick, especially towards the body of the creature, that the tail pretty much, if he's walking through a city, and this is probably why Leviathan just smashes things down in front of it, because he's walking through the city street area, which is like 100, 200 feet wide or whatever, his body's just scraping the sides of the skyscrapers. Like even if he's going in the clearest path, he's so huge that his body's just scraping the skyscrapers, and they're just like buckling and collapsing next to him, right? His tail is so wide that the sides of his tail are touching the skyscrapers. That's my point. Like his tail is so thick. As it goes down, it tapers and gets thinner, right? But even the tail is so thick that it borders the skyscrapers in a city street. So when it breathes the fire, though, right? This happened a lot of times. I would always run and flee, so I didn't really witness it all that often unless I was in a building and it was going past. But this is something nobody ever thinks about. If you had a creature that big and it's blowing hot air that could somehow be ignited out of its mouth, nobody ever factors in the wind, the air. When this thing, in my dream, it happens, but nobody ever talks about it in real life. Everybody's talking about, oh, fire breath, dragons breathe fire. If you have a creature that big blasting air, hot air and fire out of its mouth, you're going to have tremendous, it feels like a hurricane. It's like 200-300-mile-an-hour gusts of wind erupting. I don't know how big its mouth is. Its mouth might be 50 feet across. So you have to keep that in mind too. So this is a huge stream of very high force air that's just being blasted instantly out. Okay, it messes with air pressure. It shatters windows. It'll, buckle buildings, everything just from the air. It's like category 6 hurricane level. It's just ridiculous. And that's just the air, not even the fire aspect of the fire breath. So that's another component to the dream that makes it just more realistic, is that half of the destruction done by its fire breath is actually from the force of the air coming out of its mouth, and not just from the fire itself. But the fire doesn't come out in loose, billowy clouds. It comes out like a belting stream of hot, fiery plasma and just like blasts out. It's fiery, but you can definitely see that it's like a concentrated like pillar or beam. It doesn't come out like a laser, like it's got indefinite length. But when he blasts it out of his mouth, it's like a fire cannon or something, like what you imagine. It's such a strong blast that it pushes that like a projectile. It's probably just like a fire bowl, you could say, at first, that's belched out and then like maintained. So it just shoots out like a projectile, and that stream or pillar is just the tail trail of it that's being maintained by it continuing to exhale. So it just blast one out, and then you see what I mean? Like that there. It's not like it's shooting like a plasma beam or laser beam. I'm not saying something like that. Not from like a sci-fi movie. But it's very, very destructive. But more so the wind. Like if it blasted its fire breath at a building, the fire is not going to destroy the building on impact, right? But the air pressure might. It could collapse the building. So, anyways, Leviathan is extremely powerful and destructive. That's the point. It's extremely large. There's not much more detail I could give. I can't really describe the color of it either. It wasn't any crazy color like neon blue or something. Some type of earthly color. Nothing striking or unusual that I could notice in the darkness. It wasn't always attacking in darkness. Sometimes it was daylight when it was in cities, attacking cities and stuff. But anyways, those are my experiences with the Leviathan. That's the input that I wanted to add, because I found it interesting that, had this rabbi once again talking about these things, that the Leviathan will emerge at the end of days. And I just thought it'd be worth me mentioning this story again. I've got it in my End Days book. This wouldn't appeal to Judaism, but nonetheless, my End Days book, I do testify my dream in here, my End Days dream in one chapter. It's 15 pages, so I go into a fair bit of detail if you're interested. But Nonetheless, for anybody else watching, my 2 books are available on Amazon. You can see about them on my channel if you're interested. Anyways, take care, folks, and God bless. And let's hope and pray that God comes soon.